Welcome to Toy Business Unboxed, your gateway to the secrets of the toy industry. Here, Jason Shea, a toy entrepreneur and expert in the field.
Every product we develop is really inspired by some of the real life experience that we have with our son.
60% of all toys last year were sold on Amazon, which is incredible.
Be passionate about it because it's a road, it's a journey.
Like when you have an idea that you think is like gonna somewhat like change the world, make things better, I'd say go for it.
We'll guide you through the enchanting world of toy design, marketing, and manufacturing. Now let the unboxing begin.
Welcome back to another episode of Toy Business Unboxed. Today we're joined by Dr. George Kaufman, a psychologist and a longtime LGBTQ advocate, whose board game, Rainbow Quest, is more than just a fun night in. It's also a tool for growth, connection, and healing. It's blending years of academic experiences and expertise that George have within the communities. And thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
I'm trying to get a better view. That's Rainbow Quest, our baby. And I'm Brian. Just want to correct you. I'm Brian Kaufman. And thank you, Jason.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, Brian.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes. The game industry, every single day, there's something changing in it anymore. So it's okay that you got my name wrong. I'm just very glad to be here to talk about Rainbow Quest and all the other things that you noted that are important to discuss in the game industry. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so Brian, can you first share with our kind of audience what was some of your background before you start, creating the board game? What have you been working on, or what was your inspiration behind creating the board game that you currently have?
I think fear was my inspiration because for decades I had been wanting to pay it forward from when I was a teenager and worried that I might be homosexual. And the only resource was a telephone crisis line based in Manhattan. And I called them all the time. They helped me understand what my life might be like. And many years later, when I became a psychology professor, I ended up, because I was the only out gay person in the region, I ended up hosting many support groups for both youth and LGBTQ plus elders. What I found was that I could never find a good backup facilitator. And I kept worrying, what's going to happen when I'm not available? People would arrive with just minor issues to resolve, and sometimes they would arrive with some pretty major issues, like considering suicide. And I was really worried, what will happen when I'm not there? So I wanted to start to create something that would help people gain solid footing with their own sexual orientation and gender identity, help them develop authentic pride, help them to feel part of a community, help them to laugh, and to learn about the famous people throughout history that have made the world a better place, but we never knew that they were part of the LGBTQ plus community. So that's really my inspiration. Suicide's a terrible thing, and in the LGBTQ plus community, I hear that it's now 4 times higher than the community at large because there's so much pressure and so much antagonism towards this community based on ignorance mostly.
I see. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think that's a very meaningful work that you're also doing for the community. But can you kind of also explain kind of the rule behind the Rainbow Quest? How is it being played, and how is that also going to help with promoting some of the advocacy for the community as well?
The game, the narrative of the game is that everyone advances from the bleak, colorless world, the starting place, and they go along what looks like a Candyland pathway towards the rainbow, better world for everybody. And we make it very safe for anybody at all to participate. It's family friendly, and it's so much fun. Now, we are being used in hundreds of schools across the world now, which we're thrilled about. We are used in youth centers, community centers, and the Rainbow Elders are playing our game. They, yeah,
Okay.
they love
Yeah.
it. People forget, some of us actually do live to be this old, and
Mhm.
we seek community. And
Mm.
people are surprised when I tell them that there are many people who don't come out or acknowledge their own sexual orientation until
Mm.
many decades into their life, like in their 60s or 70s. And they
Mm.
don't have a clue how to negotiate and navigate and fit in. So that's where I come in.
I
We make
see.
it easy.
I see. And to elaborate that on even further, can you kind of explain the rule of the game and maybe showcase some of the pieces or the scene that's inside the game and how is
Sure.
it usually being played in the group setting?
Okay. It's so amazing. We set it up so that we have these oh, eight lucite or plastic pieces that are used as the game pawns,
Hmm.
and young and old people are like squeal. They just squeal. They go, ooh! They're so happy to see something glamorous made for them. The queer
Hmm.
community is not accustomed to seeing anything made for us,
Hmm.
that looks good. Typically we're an afterthought. This is
Hmm.
the game board. Let's see
Hmm.
if I can get that in focus here.
Hmm.
Oh, let's see. You start at the bleak war. Oh, it's not really focusing well, but you start at the
Hmm.
bleak, colorless world, make your way around the rainbow pathway towards the better world for everyone. I wish I could find the sweet spot to have it in focus, but I can't. So the game is playing games with me. And a little
Yeah.
keeps me
Okay.
young. There are 9 different challenges along that pathway. And to
Hmm.
make it extra safe for everybody, because we know there are people who are gay that don't want to play a gay game. They're afraid it might, make them uncomfortable. There are
Mm.
non-gay people who have no idea what will happen to me if I'm going to play a gay game, but I'm not gay. Or
Mm.
what if I am gay, but pretend that I'm not and play a gay game? So we make it so
Mm.
simple. We have 2 lavender dice, and we
Mhm.
give everybody the option of using either of the numbers. If they roll a 7, they can move 3 spaces, 4
Okay.
spaces, or 7 spaces. So they get 3 different choices. And we know in psychology that when you have a sense of control,
Mhm.
you are less fearful or apprehensive. Even if
Mhm.
you are given a button to press that does nothing at all, the fact that you can press a button makes you feel better. So choice is
Mhm.
important. We
Mhm.
also specifically use the Candyland style, simple
Oh,
gameplay,
okay. Okay. Yeah.
which was a big criticism of professional gamers. They said, this looks like Candyland. And I'm like, yes, we want it to look like Candyland.
Yeah.
Because psychologically,
Mm.
when people are confronted with any situation, they
Mm.
prefer and are less apprehensive about anything that they've
Mm.
seen before if it
Yeah.
wasn't hurtful to them. So for
Mm.
elderly people, for straight people, for young gay kids, it's like, oh wow, it immediately reduces their apprehension.
Mm.
For in
That
case
makes
we
sense.
could get this on the camera, on
Yeah.
the box itself, we used spot gloss printing so that we
Mm.
were able to print encouraging words on the box. Just,
Mhm.
I mean, I know it's not showing up, but that's the
Mhm.
beauty of subliminal messages. We
Mhm.
wanted to use every psychological method possible to
Mhm.
prevent suicide. And
Mhm.
at the very best, and in the meanwhile, improve the quality of life for people so that
Mm.
families could have the conversations that they've been needing to have, but
Mm.
they're afraid to. Coworkers, neighbors. I mean, everyone, people talk about their lives, but people who are not comfortable being out to others always feel like they have this burden to carry, this big knapsack filled with secrets that
Mhm.
aren't bad secrets. They're just not what you want other people to know. So the
Mhm.
game gets people talking. It's exciting.
I
And there's so much social and emotional learning built into the game. It's great.
I see. I think the by having a game like that, it really help open up some of the top conversation especially around like self-harm or even identity struggle that you just mentioned. What are some of the feedback you are also seeing when people in the community is playing and engaging around the games?
Wow. It is so heartwarming. It's so amazing to see how people react when they play the game. A lot of people roll their eyes and think, oh my God, this is going to be such a terrible experience. And
Mhm.
they love it. It's almost impossible to dislike playing this game.
Yeah.
People get so involved in it because
Mhm.
it's not about fantasy worlds, it's about this world.
Mhm.
And for so many people who feel separated because they can't figure out how to talk about these issues, or
Mhm.
they feel afraid of one another,
Mhm.
the conversations people have reveals the basic humanity that we all share. But instead of it being in the context of a straight game, it's in the context of a gay game. But the issues are important, and so people learn that they're not alone. They learn,
Mhm.
for example, if you land rather in a spot called "You Think You Know Me," the
Mhm.
other players have to guess how you might respond in a hypothetical situation.
Mhm.
For example, if your partner is leaving at the airport, do you kiss them goodbye? Do you shake hands? Or do you just say, see you later? And other players have to guess, how comfortable are you showing that you are in a same sex relationship? Some
Mhm.
people are very transparent, which is great, and other people are rather hard to figure out. But it
Mhm.
lets other people know, what are the options that I have, and what happens, what are the consequences when people choose one of those choices. Uh, they have discussions about things we never talk about otherwise. So it's
Mhm.
heartwarming. Some people cry and they thank me. They say, thank you so much. I never learned so much about the LGBTQ plus culture and history.
Mhm.
Or some straight people tell me that they learned something we never ever imagined possible. I know how difficult it is to teach white privilege. I
Mhm.
was teaching that
Yeah.
in a predominantly white college in rural Maine.
Mhm.
No one wanted to hear about it. And occasionally, some of the activists in the queer community talk about straight privilege.
Mhm.
And even I never really thought about it. But for straight players, when they listen to coming out stories, because if you land in the closet, you share a coming out story. And at
Mhm.
first that scares people. They wonder, oh, and especially straight people say, but I'm not gay. How can I tell a coming out story? And we
Mhm.
remind them of the rules. You can come out about autism or
Mhm.
being diabetic or anything at all. And
Mhm.
they say, oh, yes, I have a gay friend and we go out together and people often think we're a couple. And I say, oh, no, that's just my gay friend. I'm straight.
Mhm.
And they look really happy, like, there, I did it. But
Mhm.
then they look around at the other players and they say, I am so sorry. You all waited sometimes for years to come out to people. You wondered which words should you use, who should you tell, what would happen next.
Mhm.
And straight people say, we never thought about that. We never waited or rehearsed. It was spontaneous. There was no apprehension and no consequences. It wasn't even memorable.
Mhm.
And they say, I'm so ashamed. They say, for the first time, I understand what it means to have heterosexual privilege. We don't carry this around all the time. And it struck me because, frankly, I had never thought of it that way myself. And
Mhm.
so, here I am, the gay professor, the gay psychologist, learning from straight players one
Mhm.
of the hidden extra bonuses of the game.
I see. Thank you so much for sharing that. And from your experience, how do your games support the social emotional development differently, like traditional education tool that just couldn't do?
Wow. I tell you, I find it so sad that I had to be the person to come up and do something about this because typically we do not get much help in learning how, as gay people, what do you do? Gay people don't participate as much in social situations, so they lack the ongoing feedback about what works and what doesn't. They lack picking up on certain nonverbal or physical cues during communication.
Mm.
So, we're a little socially retarded by the time we actually come out, and we need practice. And the traditional ways of teaching don't, unless you're a really, really super entertaining, attractive professor or teacher, the students have so many distractions. They're
Yeah.
looking at the other kids. They're looking at their phones. They're on their laptops. They're picking at their shoelaces. And
Mm.
with Rainbow Quest, they're so focused. They are so interested in what's going to happen next, or what they may hear, or what they may learn. And when you're so involved and engaged in that kind of active learning, it means something. You have an investment in it, because playing the game, you might win it. And, with other forms of teaching and learning,
Yeah.
it's really hard to accomplish that. It's very hard to get that kind of engagement without distraction.
That's true. That's true. That's true. And usually, like when you are playing the game, like how many people usually play together in
Yes,
a game setting?
yes, you mentioned that earlier. So we designed it for 8 players. That's as
Maybe.
many pieces as we wanted to put in the box.
Mhm.
I find that the optimal number is 5.
Oh,
Five
five.
is
Okay.
5 is like the magic
Okay.
number in
Oh,
terms of the way the game gets played and how long it can take. Of
I
course,
see.
we have had 20 people play the game. Sometimes they will pair up.
Yeah. I
It's a
see.
very literacy dependent game.
Mm.
And
Okay.
for players who are not especially comfortable reading or speaking aloud, they can team up with someone who is comfortable.
Oh,
Or we just have people, okay, take out a coin. Do you have lint in your pocket? And we create little pawns for them. And it's the kind of game we made it very easy to learn intentionally. We wanted people to be able to jump in at any time, and they do.
yeah.
So, and no one minds. It's not like, even though it can be competitive, no one minds other people joining in, because, again, you don't know what you're going to hear from them or see from them. It's entertaining. When we
Mm.
play in a public space, we not only get the maybe 12 to 15 people that are playing the game in a restaurant or hotel lobby, we also get rings of spectators, the
Okay.
staff at the venue,
Yeah.
other customers. They want to find out what is going on there. Why are those people 1 minute laughing so hard? And how come other times you could hear a pin drop? They can't imagine what the heck is going on there. It's it's it's
See.
amazing. That's why, every single time I have been present when the game is played, I have come away feeling myself uplifted, encouraged, relieved that people are getting from the game even more than I ever thought that they would. And it's. I just wish we had an advertising budget. We got hit really hard with the pandemic, shipping and
Yeah.
supply chain issues. Our game was in that pipeline,
I see.
and our shipping costs increased 700%.
Mhm.
And so I'm thrilled that by word of mouth, we have as many people around the globe using this to help build safer communities and save lives.
Yeah, and I know this obviously the community as a whole is really growing and it's also a very interesting demographic. But I feel like it's kind of being underserved within the toys and game industry. There's not a lot of like dedicated product or like things that really like is really trying to help and serve this particular community. What do you think that is the cause behind it from your perspective?
I think part of it is, certainly there's no shortage of books. There
Yeah.
are a ton of books for every age level, kindergarten through adulthood. But it's easier to write a book than it is to develop a game about a sensitive topic that was very recently taboo
Yeah.
and very psychologically triggering for
Mm,
people. It's
yeah.
so much more difficult to create an activity that will work. And I knew that this game had to work. So it's very labor and research intensive. It's not if you're creating a fantasy game, you don't have to do a whole lot of research. You make it up. I had to make sure that every single word in this game was on point and accurate and not going to offend anybody. I'm a little surprised we haven't offended anybody. Unusual. We have not had. There's a lot of issues. There's in the state of Maryland, we have many districts using our game in schools.
Oh,
And
okay.
there's a Supreme Court ruling that's going to come down very shortly about parents' ability to opt out of activities featuring LGBTQ plus content. And so we're keeping an eye on that. But again, we had to be very careful in creating a game that could be wholesome enough to be used in schools and fun enough to be used by gay gaming groups.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually a very tricky balance.
It is. We had to go through every letter of the LGBTIQQAAII. Every single letter of the community got the content to review to make sure that we were not offensive.
I see.
So that takes a lot of research. People kept asking why we didn't make a video game version, and well, that's even more expensive than a board game.
I see. That's
Do all
true.
that.
Yeah. What are some of the feedback you're getting from the school district or even the teacher so far?
Teachers love it because it just makes it so easy for them to get their feet wet in what we call the inclusive curriculum. We're supposed to be teaching the real stories of African Americans and immigrant experiences. We're supposed to be reflecting every ethnicity and status and ability level in our classroom so everyone feels welcome and safe. And we haven't done that. So many states now have legislated the inclusive curriculum, which includes supporting and reflecting LGBTQ plus people. It's very difficult to do that from scratch. Teachers are already overworked. So when I show them how they can just open this box and use it as a reward for the students, we're going to play a game. And the students think, oh, great, we're going to be wasting some time. But they don't know how the students never imagine how much they're actually going to enjoy learning about one another in the class and developing empathy for one another, tolerance and understanding. So teachers love that. They can also say, hey, don't blame me for this. I'm just opening the box. Someone else, this is a resource. And if you don't like it, well, you don't have to like it, but don't blame me. So it gives the teachers a little bit of separation from the content, because even LGBTQ plus teachers are still quite uncomfortable bridging these topics in class because they all know that people are watching them very closely. We're not indoctrinating LGBTQ plus kids. We're just trying to acknowledge that they never knew that some of the famous people like Sally Ride, the astronaut, no one knew she was lesbian until she died. And in her obituary, it was reported. And little girls may have been more inclined to study, science, technology, and math if they knew that Sally Ride was a lesbian astronaut, or that Alan Turing, the nerdy mathematician, cracked the Project Enigma code in World War II. And that's how we were able to successfully win the war, but he was gay. And then he was put into a mental hospital or prison, and then he killed himself with a poisoned apple. I mean, it's amazing to learn these stories. And so many trans people that were under the radar. No one knew they were trans until their autopsies. So it's important for people to see themselves reflected in educational material and gaming as well. So as you said, there are so many queer people both in the game design business and the consumers of games. And the best that most of them have are the fantasy lesbians and fantasy non-binary people and fantasy bisexual characters. And like, oh, there is a bisexual lesbian who is colonizing Pluto. It's so exciting. And I'm like, okay, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful escapism.
Yeah.
But there's a reality that people should not be escaping from, and that is the authenticity of the lives they live, the challenges that that authenticity presents. And, colonizing Pluto is really not helping. But playing Rainbow Quest is going to help people navigate their lives better and have a more fulfilling life. The game teaches a lot of social skills in subtle ways, and it gives people a more enriching and rewarding life experience by learning the things they didn't learn because they were in the closet and avoiding, the usual social experiences that non-gay people enjoy and take for granted.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing and sharing. What are some of your biggest challenges? You're like promoting not just awareness piece and also promoting the board game itself since you launched the game.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I would say the biggest challenge was probably our own success. We wanted to create a game that would have everything in it. So you would never say, oh, we don't have paper or pencils. We can't play the game now. Because part of the game is like Pictionary where you draw.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so we put everything into this box, and we put in so much information, so much content, and card stock is heavy. So this game ends up weighing 5 pounds.
Oh, wow, that's heavy.
We thought that
Yeah.
when we displayed this at LGBTQ plus pride festivals and conferences, people would grab it, but no one wanted to walk away with it because it was so heavy. So that's one of the biggest challenges. The second biggest challenge is that, again, because of the pandemic, we couldn't, it cost too much. The price point was higher than it should have been. We've lowered that price point, but we're taking, it's really hurting us to sell it at the price that people will buy it at, rather than the price we should be selling it at. Another issue was that opportunities where we could have promoted the game, the New York Toy Fair, New York City Pride, everything got postponed during the pandemic. So while we had ongoing overhead for both the private game research and development company and the nonprofit that I run, had the ongoing overhead costs, it just made it so difficult to get paid advertising. We did not have good luck with the first 3 domestic social media companies that said, oh, we're so happy to help promote this important product. And then they were inept. We finally outsourced to this guy in India who I have never had a conversation with by Zoom or anything. He has done the best work with minimum guidance for an affordable price for us. We're hoping that we can start focusing a little bit more on grant writing, because as a 501c3 nonprofit that helps to make sure that every community that needs this game can have it. We really are eligible for a lot of grants that we haven't simply had the time to apply for, like making a Spanish translation of the game. That would be really helpful. And so our next project, of course, has to be making the game smaller, which we can do very easily. And we also have a travel version in the works.
Okay, that'll be nice.
Anywhere at all. Again, it'll be very inexpensive and easy to carry around. So we have learned from our mistakes. We also, one of the game manufacturing industry leaders, Matt Fantastic. I don't know if you probably have met Matt Fantastic from Forever Creative. I forget the name of his company. Sorry, Matt. Matt said, for God's sakes, why do you say the game that educates, affirms, engages, and all that? And it's like, he said, you never want to put that on a game box. You never want people to think the game is good for them. Who wants to play a game that's good for you? So he said, definitely take that off the box. And that's been another challenge. Originally, we thought this game would be a no-brainer for all of the after-school clubs that support LGBTQ youth and desperately need reliable, consistent, engaging programming. That was the primary reason I created the game, along with it being suicide preventing, because that is some other
Yeah.
feedback I got from people playing the game.
Yeah.
After everyone else would leave, they'd say, I didn't know if I should come to this group tonight or stay home and finally get it right, meaning. And they said playing this game made me wonder how I could ever have wanted to end my life. They said there's so many things. I realized I'm not hopeless. So, yeah, it's been challenging, and bridging the gaps between the game being used in education is one area. Therapists and counseling centers are using the game,
I
and
see.
then gay gaming groups, because it's just that much fun.
Mm.
And so it's been very difficult to explain to anyone in the industry how one game can actually be marketed to those three segments. And I admit, we have not figured that out yet. We're working on it.
I see. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, what I've basically been doing ever since I got that feedback now is when we go to the conventions like PAX Unplugged or Origins and coming up in Columbus, Ohio, I say, hey, we're just a big, dumb, family-friendly LGBTQ plus themed game. It's so much fun. And some teachers and some therapists think it's okay to use in their work too, but it's really fun. So, emphasizing the fun, toning down the, how good it is for you.
I see. So what is next for Rainbow Quest in 2025 and beyond? What are you working on? Oops, I think I just lost you, Brian. Let me see. Welcome back, Brian. Can you hear me? Could not see your camera anymore.
Is that better?
I'm not sure I can hear you now. Yeah.
No I'm problem. So glad I'm back here. You asked what's up next for me. First, I'm going to do a disappearing act because Rainbow Quest is magic, and so
we'll edit it out. Don't worry.
I disappeared. Now I'm back. Yeah. And what's next is navigating the current political climate. I have no idea what's going to happen. It's just this week, the federal government withdrew all the funding for the LGBTQ plus suicide prevention hotlines. They get thousands and thousands of calls. As I was told by someone who organizes the New York City Heritage of Pride, they said, Brian, every year we have dozens of groups that march to support youth and support elders and, end bullying and make schools safer. And they said, you have the power tool. Your game is like a power tool for safer schools and suicide prevention and community building. And we're more important than ever right now. But in this political climate, it's been harder to raise money. Yeah. It's been harder. You ran a workshop, a webinar last week on what to do about the tariffs.
Tariff. Yeah.
Like everybody else right now, we were ready. We were ready to do a Kickstarter to get our travel edition ready for the Origins Festival. Yeah. And we're not doing it right now. It would be ridiculous. We can't. And with the second edition of Rainbow Quest, that's going to take a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. And we just have to figure out what we're going to do. Your advice, which I listened to very carefully, was to offset the tariffs, find ways to save the costs in your manufacturing and the weight of the game and all that. Yeah. And unfortunately, that is exactly what we have been tasked with doing. Everyone in the industry said, Brian, the game, you have to have a lower price point. It has, because your game is edgy, it can't be expensive. People have to be willing to spend a little bit of money on it.
To
And if
try
it doesn't work, they haven't lost too much. But, luckily, we've never had anyone want to return the game.
I see. Thank you so
But
much
it's
for
hard.
sharing that.
So
Yeah.
we would love to. We want to do a Kickstarter. The people at Kickstarter love Rainbow Quest. They've been wanting. They say, "Let us know. We want you to succeed. We want to help you," because they understand how important this is. You mentioned earlier there are the proportion of gamers who identify as LGBTQI plus is enormous. About 40% now. And those 40% spend more money on games. We can't have them kill themselves. We don't want to lose them as consumers. We want them to live, and we want them to play games because, as you know, and with your own children and your history, games are important. You learn so much from playing games.
Yeah.
And the tariffs are, unthinkable right now because games are so important. And if cars can be exempted from the tariffs, games should be too. Because games are educational, they're therapeutic, they're a wonderful way to escape from the unusual political climate. Again, I run a 501c3, so I can't be political. As diplomatic as I can possibly be.
Understood. So thank you for all the very important work you are doing for the community and also for the advocacy. Where can people find more about you and your organization online?
You can learn more than you wanted to, probably, from our website, www.rainbowquest.org. That's rainbowquest.org. You can make a donation to our nonprofit. You can purchase the game. You can purchase accessories. Teachers love our website because they can go to our website and not be bombarded with not suitable for work stuff. We're squeaky clean and wholesome, and they can buy a coffee mug or a mouse pad to show their students that they're supportive. The smallest trinkets matter so much. This ring that I'm wearing, I had a student come to see me to tell me that ring saved their life. That's sitting in my lecture. They said, if he can be a successful adult gay man, maybe I can too. Now, of course, that student 20 years later is now a woman. So Adelaide, if you're watching, hello.
Yeah, I see. Thank you so much for sharing that very powerful story as well. And thank you so much for spending time with us on the podcast and sharing your missions and sharing your passion with our community as well. Really
I was
appreciate
just going to say it's a pleasure to know you and your intelligence and your passion. So I guess we're a good team.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you so much for our listener for tuning in to today's episode of Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We really hope you have enjoyed today's conversation and find it insightful and inspiring. If you like what you have heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. We really appreciate your support. We love it if you can leave us a review and share the podcast with your friend and colleague. For more resource tips and the latest update within the toys and games industry, visit our website at toy-launch.com. Join the conversation and connect with us on social media using hashtag #ToyBusinessUnboxed. We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for future episodes. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, keep bringing joys to toys. This is Jason Shea signing off on the Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for everyone's time.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.